right, me and my beard are back for another episode here. If you can't see this, if you're just listening to it on audio, you might want to go over to YouTube. If you're one of my clients who I haven't physically seen for a few months, you're probably going to recognize a lot of my clients have been. It's like, wow, your beard is a lot bigger than what it used to be. Yes, so it is. I'm kind of enjoying it. No hair on the top of my head for the last decade and a half. And so I've had nothing to style in this area. And now I do. It's like, when November, when I have the elk hunt with my dad in Northwest Colorado, one of the reasons I'm growing this warmth right here. So after that's done, I'm probably going to trim it back a little bit, but I'm probably not going to go back to where I was before, where I usually kept it at about maybe a week's worth of growth. I just kept it all nice and trimmed. I'm probably going to leave some length. I actually kind of like it. I like the look, like messing with it. So you know what? I think the beard is here to stay. Can't grow any on the top of my head, so I'm going to grow as much as I can on the bottom. So, that being said, again, I guess the shack, it's supposed to be a cabin that we're staying in. Not only does it has no running water, it has no electricity, and any heating, we have to bring our own propane tanks if we want to heat anything. So I'm just thinking to myself, man, are like my brothers and dad and I, are we all going to be spooning for warmth because we have no heating, or we're going to be sleeping in our hunting gear just to make sure that we've got enough warmth? Oh, yeah, I don't know. We're definitely roughing it. So I'll find out how this is going to look. I did not book this. So we'll find out how this all works out, I guess, here in a couple months. But that's not why we're here. I want to do a couple things. The theme or the topic that we're going to be talking about today is actually underspending. And so there are a lot of retirees I've run into that have plenty of money, but they're not spending it in retirement. And I'll get to that here in a second. That is the actual topic that we're going to go through. I do want to give since right now it is like election season is in full swing at this point. We're, I don't know, less than 50 days at this point away from electing a new president. And I mean, if anybody spent any time on social media, everybody's going nuts on social media, and there's no nicety, there's no civil realness about a lot of it, in my opinion. And the viewpoint that I have, this is how I'm going to, like, at least from now forward, I can look at some of my maybe some of my past posts don't reflect this, but they were my past posts. This is how I'm looking at everything here forward. And I actually came up with this viewpoint of how to go about voting personally for myself several weeks ago. But here it is, because and I'll explain why I do it this way as well. There are, if you read any posts on social media from people on the left or right, it doesn't matter. If they're on the left, they're going to talk about how Trump is this and is that, and he lies about this, he lies about that, he's convicted felon, all of this stuff, right? And then and how can you vote for him because of all of those things? But then you've got people on the right that'll be like, well, now that Kamala Harris is the nominee, it was Joe Biden before Kamala ended up getting the nomination after Biden dropped out. And so now it will be, well, Kamala is this or that, or has lied about this, or has lied about that, or didn't do this. And then you get those same people on the right that say, how can you vote for her because of those XYZ things? And I can't understand how anybody could vote for that candidate because of XYZ position, right? Or XYZ thing that they have done in the past. And here's my viewpoint. Most of the stuff, like, and I say stuff like with quotations about, like, it's just the all-encompassing stuff that is talked about online, whether it's in articles, whether it's even the nominees themselves, anything that they say. Is it going to be true? Maybe. Is it not? Also, maybe. How do any of us know? Most time we don't. So what I'm saying is, at that level of politics, I'm just going to assume that there is a gray area of morality among all of them. All of them. I'm just going to say all of them are, when they talk about so-and-so did this or believes this, or if you vote for so-and-so, that's a vote against democracy or for democracy, or it's so and so is a fascist. It's amazing how both sides will call either side a fascist. Anyway, um, my point of view is let's just bake all that into the cake. Let's just already assume that anything that is said about the character of either candidate, or if you sit there and tell me, how can I vote for such and such because of XYZ? One, anytime you're talking to someone of the other party, it's amazing how if you say certain things about their candidate, what are the chances they're actually going to believe what you said about their candidate? And then if they say the same type of things back to you about your candidate, what are the odds you're going to believe them about what they say about your candidate? Slim to none. Slim to none chance, right? That you're going to believe that. So when we all levy those types of things at our quote friends on Facebook or whatever it is, the chances of them actually changing their mind, again, slim to none. And a lot of the things that someone might say that their candidate, the other candidate, has lied about or done or whatever, they're not going to believe those things either. And so when they lie or when they say certain things about your candidate that they're lying about, you don't believe those either. So in other words, let's just stop doing that. It's like all of that stuff when they're talking about the character or, whatever someone has done outside of the policies, right? Outside of their actual policies. Everything else, in my opinion, it's just noise. That's all it is. It's just noise. And if we can just automatically assume that anybody at that level of government is always going to have some level of amorality or some level of doing things that might not necessarily be 100% legal if a civilian did it or whatever it is, whatever we want to levy at the opposing party's candidate or at the supporters of the opposing party's candidate, none of them are going to believe any of that. They don't think that a vote for Trump is a vote to end democracy. They don't think a vote for Kamala Harris is a vote for migrant crime. It's like, no, that's not, nobody believes any of that stuff if they're voting for that particular person. So let's just stop doing that. Let's stop doing that and let's bake it into the cake. What do I mean by bake it into the cake? If we all assume that all of that is already apparent, that their candidate does have some questionable morals on either side, both of them do, right? What are we meant to do about that? If we bake it into the cake, what does that mean? That means now we can ignore all of that noise. We can just simply ignore all of that noise, and that frees up a lot of brain space and it frees up decision making to be able to, all right, just going to continually ignore that. If they say something, I don't believe it, but whatever, let's just let that go. If somebody else says it about them, I don't believe that either. Let's just put it to the side. And let's actually vote based on what policies we feel that those candidates are going to come up with. For example, I, being a financial advisor, two of the big areas that I look at when I'm going to vote for a candidate is the economy and taxes. Who do I feel is going to be better for the economy for everyone? And who do I feel is going to be better from a tax standpoint for everyone? Who is going, and for better from a tax standpoint, by the way, is lower taxes. It's like, who do I feel, which candidate do I feel would have lower taxes? Lower taxes for everybody, not just the super rich, but also everybody. And I've got enough experience with taxes that I understand when people say certain things or they put out what their policies are, I understand the ramifications of that. So I understand whether or not that's actually an increase in tax or a decrease in tax. And so that's how I'm going to, those are the main two areas. There's a few other areas that I won't get into. I don't want to take up all the time of this podcast just with all of that. I just wanted to give an idea of this is how I'm going to look at it. So again, if anybody says, how can you vote for XYZ? I'm putting that to a side. I'm going to pretend like you never even said it. And I'm just going to look at the policies of whoever it is that I'm going to vote for. And that's it. Just the policies. Because at the end of the day, that's all that matters for the vast majority of us. Now, if you disagree with me, you can go ahead and disagree with me. That's okay. It's a free country still. And so you can do that. And if you want to disagree and email me, ask Nate at retirementrescueradio.com. Send an email there and say how I am completely wrong in my approach to who I vote for and how I go about voting for it, so that now I can just stop listening to all the noise that's out there and just go to the policies. That's all I'm going to do. So, I mean, I'm registered independent for those of you that wanted to know. And so that's why I want to do that. I'm tired of everybody just backbiting and throwing all kinds of insults left and right. And I'm just like, you know what? We all have a lot more in common than what we have against each other. We all want a better future for our kids, for our grandchildren. We just all disagree on how that's going to happen. That's it. All right. So let's actually talk about the policies and get away from just name calling and whether it's name calling each other, whether it's name calling the candidates. All right. We don't even need to do that. Let's just focus on the dang policies. All right. That's it. That's my soapbox. And now we'll get into what we want to talk about. It's interesting. So at some point in a financial advisor's career, all financial advisors, I used to consult financial advisors, and I heard about this happening even when I was doing that, we're likely to incur retired clients who have more than enough money to meet their lifestyle needs for the rest of their lifetime, yet they've got a hard time spending beyond just the basics, right? Which might be better than the alternative, a client who spends in an unsustainable manner. But the one that's not spending enough, it could leave that client with a retirement that's less than fulfilling as it could be, right? And so some clients might have no problem spending in retirement, taking advantage of their extra time to travel and, pursue hobbies that they've been interested in for a long time. Just maybe they didn't have enough time to do those. Though going overboard with spending, particularly in the early years of retirement, could potentially reduce the probability that their assets will support them throughout what could be a multi-decade retirement. So others, though, find it really hard to spend in retirement, even though their assets could support a higher level of spending, but because that they're afraid that a market downturn or some other thing could lead to a reduced standard of living in their later years. So basically, they feel like if they take this trip this year, that might be how much money could they have had to go towards, say, a long-term care incident. So I feel like I'm spending my long-term care needs today in order to have that trip, and I won't have that money later. That's kind of the thought process. And while retirement's often described as one's golden years, the transition from working to retirement can be stressful for a lot of people, both financially as they have to find a way to support their lifestyle needs without a regular paycheck coming in, but emotionally too, as they adjust to life without that day-to-day job. And I've got all the sources here cited. There's a gentleman that describes these challenges as disempowerment. So disempowerment would be as financially a retired individual will no longer be providing for the needs based on their own work, perhaps making them reluctant to spend down their assets. While professionally, they also no longer have the sense of purpose and esteem that can come from employment. So, I always tell people in some of my workshops that if you think about it, retirement is fundamentally 180 degrees from what we've been doing our entire lives. Right? We've been working, getting a steady paycheck and saving our money. And then the moment we retire, we're no longer working. We're not getting that steady paycheck. And now we're supposed to spend all of the money that we made. So if you really think about that, yeah, that is a complete 180 from what we've been doing our entire life. And so sometimes that's a hard pill to swallow. And it's a hard thing to transition to make mentally, because if you think about it, even in some of the negative years, there's been a lot of positive years and a lot of negative years that we all have when we are investing. Well, some of those negative years, let's just think about like 2018, the market was down for the year, but it wasn't down much. And so if you're putting 10%, 15% or whatever of your salary into your 401k or 403b or whatever retirement plan you've got at work, you might not have seen too many negative years. Even the negative years from a market standpoint could have technically looked like positive years on your statements because you're always putting money in. And so retirement for a lot of people could be some of the first times that they have really seen their account balance actually start to go down instead of going up. And yeah, that can mess with your head. And a lot of individuals who find themselves either over or underspending in retirement, they might be basing those decisions on a few different behavioral biases. For example, so we're going to talk about a few different behavioral finance type issues here. Clients who overspend early in retirement might be engaging in what's called temporal discounting, it discounts future needs in place of present day needs and desires. So it's kind of the opposite of not wanting to spend. And this can occur when an individual feels possibly disconnected from their future selves, and they prioritize their current needs and wants over saving, or in the case of retirees, restricting their spending. So to support clients experiencing that phenomenon, spending too much, financial advisors can help them picture their future selves, either literally using like one of these age progression apps that are out there, that show them what they might look like, or just figuratively, right? By having them write down what they imagine their life will be like when they're in their, 70s or 80s or even, right? And then find out whether or not they actually have enough money to support that type of lifestyle in that time too, just to help them kind of future pace and put themselves in that future position if they have the overspending issue. But on the other end of the spectrum, an individual having a hard time spending as much money as they would otherwise could be experiencing pessimism bias. And that's overestimating the likelihood of negative events like extreme market losses or even loss aversion. And that's the negative feeling that you get from extreme market losses that will overshadow and are larger than the positive feelings that might be experienced from an equivalent gain. So like if we lost 10% or we gained 10%, losing 10% is far more painful than gaining 10%. So if they've got that loss aversion issue, that could lead to like a zero risk balance bias or just the desire to take as little risk as possible. And that could be even with their budget or with their investing itself. And some potential ways that we as advisors can help clients in those situations include creating additional sources of guaranteed income. It could also be delaying Social Security benefits, maybe purchasing an annuity so you reduce the market risk and you can generate guaranteed streams of income. And so basically creating paycheck-like income in retirement for people that won't run out. There's been all kinds of research papers that have talked about individuals who experience a significant amount of pain. And so those that don't spend a whole lot, those are considered tightwads, apparently. And I'm like, yeah, I fall in that category. While their counterparts would be called spendthrifts, right? We're all familiar with those too. They experience too little pain when it comes to spending. And for some individuals, being thrifty is part of their identity. For instance, an individual who saved diligently through their working years might find it hard to reverse the flow and start drawing down their accounts in retirement. Other individuals might have experienced maybe acute poverty at some point in their life, and they might assume that while they might be financially stable today, such prosperity can be fleeting and that a negative turn of events could lead them back to deprivation. And so, of course, there could be other tightwads that have tendencies based on how they were raised, like an individual that was raised with parents or even grandparents who made it through the Great Depression might have picked up on their quote money script, which would be, messages and lessons that are learned about money while they grew up. And so those all can play into it. And personally, I did grow up poor. So I've definitely been there, and I would definitely fall under the tightwad aspect of things because, yeah, there are some times where I know I've been poor in the past and I don't want to go back to that. And so that might cause me even to spend less than what I probably could because of that pessimism bias. So altogether, while a lot of retirees are probably going to find it easy to spend at least within and up to their means in retirement, others might go too far or not enough, right? I mean, we don't like people depriving themselves of making spending choices that they would have otherwise done based on those behavioral biases. And while, we all might, and when I say we, financial advisors, we might not want to, call you out directly, as a lot of clients might bristle at the notion that they are experiencing these negative biases in some ways. We can help by just identifying those of you that might be in one of those different situations and help explore ways to overcome those potential biases. And luckily, retirees, even those that are close to retirement, they've got several options to help combat feelings of disempowerment, many of which can be supported with even the help of financial advisors. You may be familiar, and some of you maybe not, with something called a, quote, phased retirement. So phased retirement is gradually reducing the number of hours worked. That could help a pre-retiree gradually adjust to life away from work to avoid the shock of like sudden full retirement. And so or if your job doesn't offer phased retirement, maybe the way that you can do that yourself is maybe you quit the main job that you were doing, but you've got a part-time job that you're really going to explore, that you love doing. It's in an industry that you're going to have a good time, and maybe it doesn't have a whole lot of responsibility, so it's pretty easy to do. That can also contribute to a sense of purpose and even bring in extra cash, which in that case might actually even make it easier for you to spend on travel and other wants in retirement, because now you've got some job income still coming in. Some people might just look at that, their retirement income as covering all of their basic needs, and might have a part-time job to cover all of the trips they might want to take, I mean, you make $15,000-$20,000 from a part-time job. If all of that is discretionary and like all the rest of your income is covered from all of your other sources of income, well, now $15,000 to $20,000, if that's purely for the fun stuff you want to do in retirement, like travel, man, you could have some pretty darn good trips with an extra $15,000-$20,000 for the year. You can even have several smaller trips throughout the year with that much. So that, I mean, yeah, that could help people do some of those fun things in retirement as well. If, completely cutting off the whole, paycheck from a job might be a little bit daunting for someone. So ultimately what we want to do here, I mean, the key point is that even the wealthiest clients have a hard time spending on themselves, particularly when it comes to drawing down those assets in retirement. And that presents an opportunity for us as advisors to both help clients explore the underlying contributors to their tightwad tendencies and help them find ways that they can spend more. And because another reason I look at this is money is meant to be in motion. We've all heard he who dies with the most toys doesn't necessarily win. That's not the case. But those that create the most memories and create the most, value with the money that they have and do the things that enrich their lives, those are the ones that are going to pass away more fulfilled. Just because you've got $1 million extra dollars when you pass away, well, that could have been $1 million extra dollars you could have used and found a way to either bless others with or to have fun yourself and you and your family utilizing that while you're still alive too, so that you can actually see the benefits of all the hard work that you did. So that's just it. That, you know what, we want to try to find ways to actually help you spend the money that you made throughout your entire life. And so that you can do that in such a way that you are giving yourself permission to spend and that you actually have the confidence to spend in order to give yourself that permission. And the only way that you can really do that is making sure that the retirement strategies that you have in place are going to be good enough to give you that confidence. And so if there's any of you guys out there that might be thinking, you know what, I don't know if what we're doing right now is awesome, that's understandable. But just if you could just rank yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being, 9 or 10 being you absolutely have everything in place. You got everything in place for your investing. You feel like you're taking on the adequate amount of risk, not too much, not too little. You've got your estate planning in place. Maybe you got a will or a trust going. You've got any long-term care or like catastrophic medical areas covered. You've got your tax situation figured out. You know that all the sources of income that you have in retirement are going to last your entire life and you're not going to run out before you pass away. If you are like a 9 or a 10 on every single one of those different areas, you probably don't have anything to worry about. But if you're thinking to yourself, you know what, if any of those areas that I mentioned, if you don't know whether or not you have a plan, it's like that would definitely be a reason to come to visit with an advisor. But even if you think you do have some kind of a plan, but it just might not be very good, or you're not just 100% sure, well, that'd be at least a reason to get it checked out to see whether or not it could be improved on. So if you fall into any of those categories, just go ahead and reach out to us. We've got that 15-minute phone call. It's an introductory phone call, just to find out whether or not there is anything that we can do to help you and improve your situation. So again, you'll be able to find that link here, either in the show notes, or if you're on YouTube, it should be somewhere in the description of everything to get that introductory call. So that's it, guys. I'm just trying to, again, bring you information that can empower you, not disempower you, empower you to live the retirement you deserve. So take care.